Good evening. I'm Angela Harrington, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Corporate Culture and the New Digital Workplace with Kevin Brauer. This virtual event is being presented by the Berkeley College Larry L. Lewing School of Business graduate program. I would like to extend a special thanks to our co-sponsors, Affinity Federal Credit Union and the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce. In a few moments, we will be hearing from Kevin Brauer, Chief Administration and Financial Officer at Affinity Federal Credit Union, who will be making remarks about corporate culture and the new digital workplace. On behalf of Berkeley College, I would like to welcome Kevin and the members of the Affinity team here with us this evening, including Pamela Cohen, Vice President of Human Resources at Affinity. I would also like to introduce members of the MBA team: David Glazier, Director of the MBA program; faculty members, Vanita Itu, Michael McAteer, and Maya Reddy. Our faculty bring exceptional academic and real-world corporate experience to teaching and learning. A special thank you to Michael Lincoln, Director of the MBA Graduate Admissions Program, for his role in organizing this evening's event and for his leadership in overseeing the corporate learning partnership with Affinity Federal Credit Union. Michael will be sharing his contact information in the chat box, so if you're interested in connecting with him, be sure to take his contact information and exchange information with Michael this evening. Here this evening to introduce our keynote speaker is Dr. Joseph Scarali, Dean of Online Education at the Larry L. Lewing School of Business at Berkeley College. Joe has been with Berkeley College for more than 13 years and entered the field of higher education after a 25-year career managing his family's plastics processing machinery business. Joe earned a doctorate of professional studies in business with concentrations in international business and marketing from Pace University. As a faculty member, Joe brings extensive knowledge of industrial marketing and management to the classroom. As an administrator, Joe presides over Berkeley College's flagship business programs and nationally recognized online programs. I bring you Joseph Scarali.
Thank you very much, Angela. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event and introduce you to our keynote speaker, Kevin Brauer. Our mission at Berkeley College is to empower students to achieve lifelong success in dynamic careers. In 2021, we will be celebrating our 90th anniversary. We have been empowering students through career-focused education for over 90 years. Kevin Brauer has been transforming lives through his 30-year career in the financial services industry. As Chief Administration and Financial Officer at Affinity Federal Credit Union, the largest credit union in New Jersey, Kevin is leading Affinity's digital transformation by investing in technology infrastructure and people. Affinity, headquartered in Basking Ridge, has more than 20 branches across the tri-state area and ranks among the top 2% of all credit unions in asset size. Kevin has been with Affinity since 2015. Prior to his role at Affinity, Kevin worked at other credit unions. He served as Chief Operating Officer for Empire Corporate Federal Credit Union, FCU, in Colony, New York, for more than 15 years. He then became Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Naperville, Illinois-based Aloya Corporate FCU, and worked there for almost 4 years. Kevin also worked at vServe, a division of vSoft Corp., a provider of banking and payment solutions, as Chief Operating Officer, a position he held before joining Affinity. Affinity is a member-owned, not-for-profit, full-service financial institution insured by the National Credit Union Administration. The credit union was chartered in 1935 and over the years became affiliated with telecommunications companies Western Electric and AT&T and served the needs of employees at those companies. I am proud to share with you that Affinity Federal Credit Union is a Berkeley College corporate learning partner. The Corporate Learning Partnership Program at Berkeley College provides companies with the ability to scale up the skills of their employees while scaling up the capabilities of their organizations. Through the Corporate Learning Partnership, some Affinity 54 employees are enrolled in graduate and undergraduate degree programs at Berkeley College. 30 Affinity employees are graduate students in the Berkeley College's MBA program. Tonight, Kevin will share lessons in leadership in the midst of a pandemic. The COVID pandemic has changed the way we learn, the way we do business, and the way that we plan for the future. Kevin will discuss the ways that the new digital workplace impacting today's businesses and consumers. You will have a chance to ask Kevin questions following his remarks. You can share any questions you have in the Q&A box. Kevin will be taking your questions, and he will be joined by a panel of faculty for a conversation on leading change in a time of disruption. Let me introduce Kevin Brauer.
Thank you, Dr. Scarelli, for that introduction, and a big hello to all tonight's participants. It's a real privilege to be speaking to you all tonight on digital transformation's impact on culture, leadership, and competencies at Affinity Federal Credit Union. Let's begin tonight by looking at digital transformation. Digital transformation, we read it and hear it constantly now that the pandemic affected business and consumers hard. Businesses that had begun the journey to a digital transformation expedited strategic plans by 3 to 5 years in 3 to 5 weeks. Unfortunately, businesses not prepared for a digital transformation are struggling to find their way through the challenges that the pandemic has presented. In financial services, digital transformation has been the in thing for many years. In fact, in my 30-year career in financial services, there has been a pattern of digital transformation from the use of ATMs to the digitization of the check image and the introduction of home and mobile banking, to name just a few examples. At Affinity, our strategic plan, like most financial institutions, has digital transformation as a cornerstone to our changing business model, with the heavy lifting to be accomplished in the next 3 to 5 years. Well, guess what? We are now 3 to 5 years ahead of schedule because the time for digital transformation is now. So let's level set to a definition of a digital transformation. Like many phrases in business, it is not easily defined because businesses and business people all have their own interpretation. The following definition, I think, captures many of the elements of digital transformation, is provided on the website of Salesforce. Salesforce is the world's #1 customer relationship management, or CRM, platform. They define it as digital transformation is the process of using digital technologies to create new or modify existing business processes, culture, and customer experiences to meet changing business and market requirements. This reimagining of business in the digital age is digital transformation. No matter how you define digital transformation, the process of the transformation must start and end with the customer in mind. The end goal has to be making it easier and more efficient for the customer to do business with your organization. Obviously, one of the biggest examples of digital transformation is what Amazon has done with the retail shopping experience. You can buy and receive most items you need while never leaving your home. The question for all of us is, how do we take that model and apply it to other businesses and, in our case, to financial services? Bringing the digital transformation discussion closer to home, Affinity is on a path that will continue the drive to rethink how the organization uses technology, people, and processes to fundamentally change our service delivery to the member and ultimately our business performance. We call customers members, as our members own the organization under the credit union not-for-profit structure. By Affinity heavily leaning into a digital transformation, benefits can be derived by meeting member expectations and providing further efficiency in the organization's operation. Affinity is in the process of turning insight into action by tapping into our members' financial life journey and financial intuition with algorithms that will recommend better answers and solutions for our members than either humans or machines could reach on their own. Our plan has identified the following further steps needed to succeed on this journey. Affinity needs to continue to enhance the measurable, individually personalized pathway to a member's long-term financial well-being through a combination of digitally high-tech and high-touch, frictionless member experiences which expedited during the pandemic in 2020. We need to continue the evolution of Affinity into an agile, collaborative operating culture through role clarity, skilled people in the right roles, process improvement, quick decision-making, and managed risk-taking, where experimental, adaptive test and learn processes are encouraged and empowered decision-making is based on trusting data analytics and algorithms. We need to continue to establish a quality data-driven architecture that drives AI-based self-service, product and service personalization, and increase the members' ease of use of Affinity's products and services. Affinity will continue the transition to a digital hybrid financial services organization, which was expedited by the members during the pandemic, by emphasizing to all members that they use the digital channels for basic transactions as we provide consultative financial services through a strategically located branch network, the call center, and by video conference for member convenience. The ultimate vision of this journey is for our members to interact with the organization in whatever way they find most convenient, even if that includes providing them service while they sit on their living room couch in the middle of the night. That level of service kind of reminds me of that commercial about Jake from State Farm. Since our official digital transformation began several years ago, we learned very quickly to be successful on this journey, we needed to update our organizational culture, leadership style, and employee core competencies. Let's take a quick look at those impacts. Affinity for decades successfully leveraged a traditional organizational culture and leadership style to grow and compete in the financial services industry. However, to successfully compete in the ever-changing financial services industry in the future, Affinity needed to pivot its culture, leadership behaviors, and organizational core competencies to facilitate the organization's move to a more agile bias, supporting the needed success of the digital transformation. Affinity's ability to survive and thrive in the new financial services landscape was going to require that the culture undertake a fundamental shift to an agile culture designed to enable Affinity to compete in the financial services digital landscape. This cultural shift was to enable innovation, collaboration, and value creation for members and the organization at a new speed, scale, and impact. Research has shown that agile organizations can develop products 5 times faster, make decisions 3 times faster, and reallocate resources quickly and effectively. Affinity considers team members to be the most valuable organizational resource. The organization has the tradition of investing in its people while offering team members a friendly and rewarding place to work. A history of collaborative efforts in a hierarchical management structure has been utilized to support a culture of deep analysis and pragmatic deployment of solutions, which served the organization well for many years. Despite past success with the existing culture, it was recognized that a new direction for culture was needed to take the organization to the next level of success. Historically, the culture of Affinity, like most financial institutions, favored a static, siloed, structural hierarchy that operated through linear planning and control to execute on the defined business model. Affinity is finding this culture inadequate as the complexity of the financial services industry continues to necessitate almost constant change. To support the strategic direction of digital transformation and member experience, Affinity needed to enhance its current culture by adopting an agile bias and characteristics of an agile organization. Agile organizations have evolved to answer the challenges of an unpredictable and rapidly changing environment, like the one Affinity is currently operating within. Affinity's long-term focus is to execute against a consistent definition of organizational agility. For Affinity, the following definition of organizational agility provided support for the hybrid digital member-centric strategic direction. Affinity promotes and supports a culture that emphasizes organizational agility to enable the people in the organization to quickly reconfigure strategy, structure, processes, decision-making, people, and technology, which will provide a value-added member experience that is desired by the membership and is highly competitive in the financial marketplace. Affinity, through organizational agility, will fluidly adapt to environmental changes, will be inclusive of member and Affinity team members' input, and be non-hierarchical. We will evolve continually, embrace uncertainty and ambiguity as we look to improve the financial lives of our members in the communities we serve. The move of Affinity to an agile culture required a new and fundamentally different kind of leadership behavior. A credit union management periodical captured the elements of the change in leadership Affinity needed to gravitate towards. To succeed in leadership today, managers need to be servant leaders. A servant leader is approachable, engaging, and focused. A servant leader promotes an environment of productivity and positivity. A servant leader has emotional intelligence and understands the importance of cultivating relationships in the workplace. The concepts of being a servant leader resonated with the team I was working with to put the program together. But as a team, we just didn't see the success rolling out the program using the polarizing word of servant. Ultimately, we adopted the premise of the servant leadership style, but call it being advocate leaders. Advocate leaders at Affinity will advocate for their teams, for the members, for the organizational strategy, and for the individual team members' development and professional growth. The executive team adopted a set of newly defined leadership principles for Affinity regarding clarity, delivering success and helping others succeed, valuing diversity of thought, cultivating a culture of trust leading to a greater good, delivering feedback, coaching, and mentoring, and encouraging growth of the organization and team members. Each of these principles provides the support and measurement of success on the journey to the further implementation of advocate leadership behaviors throughout all levels of the organization. For Affinity, the following definition of advocate leadership was needed to support the culture of agility and the strategic thrusts of member experience in digital transformation. As an advocate leader at Affinity, you are an advocate first. You focus on the needs of others, especially the needs of members, the organization, and team members before you consider your own. As an advocate leader, you acknowledge other people's perspectives, give them the support they need to meet their professional and personal goals, seek others' involvement in decisions, and build a sense of the organization as a community within your team. Your advocate leadership should lead to higher member and team member engagement, more trust, and stronger relationship with the members and with others in the organization. Research indicates that companies seeking success with an agile culture are 3 times more likely to achieve success when the right talent is in place. This means that Affinity needed to scale up its talent through talent development and through bringing in new talent with a newly developed set of core competencies that are required to be successful in an agile culture, while continuing to maintain a high level of member service and support for a digital transformation. These core competencies, as developed, ended up being the table stakes needed for a team member to be part of the Affinity team. Whenever an organization wants to pivot their culture, it requires a long-term strategy that takes several years and a multitude of activities in order to reach the desired state. The critical element of the cultural pivot is to recognize the good in the existing culture while painting a clear vision for the team members of the newly desired culture. The cultural pivot led by the advocate leaders was enhanced by explaining why the change is being made, by getting team members to rally around the new culture, and by defining the new core competencies for team members to strive to meet and exceed. To enable our organization to successfully thrive in the future and to meet the strategic thrusts of member experience in digital transformation, Affinity's culture, leadership, and competencies were pivoted to take on more of an agile-based approach toward the future. By adopting the changes, we believe Affinity in time will have a better path toward improving both member experience and organizational performance. Ultimately, the new agile leadership fundamentals utilized by the organization will deliver enhanced growth, profitability, increased member satisfaction, and team member engagement. It is too early to absolutely point to the success of the culture and business model pivot, as the pandemic certainly infringed on the progress that the organization was making pre-pandemic. However, I do think it's safe to say that the initial cultural fundamentals put in place and the business model pivot towards a digital transformation allowed for an almost seamless move to serving members remotely that will now serve as a permanent change in serving members going forward. Although we are designated as an essential business as a financial institution, out of safety for our members and employees, we retreated to serving members through the drive-up window, by appointment only in the branches, through home and mobile banking, and by telephone. Today, we still have 75% of our team members working from their homes and will operate like this for the foreseeable future. We will evaluate and monitor the success of this model on an ongoing basis to determine the necessity to bring people back to our offices. The digital and cultural change will now need to be virtual. To that end, just recently, we rolled out to our team members access to a virtual learning portal. This virtual portal provides links to self-directed learning materials that support our identified core competencies and other materials for leaders and executives for all to grow personally and professionally. Before I close out my prepared remarks and we turn to questions, I want to leave everyone with a very important final piece of advice. This world is now changing faster than ever, which means so are the competency requirements organizations have of its people. For almost 40 years of my professional life, and yes, I'm only 45, I have found lifelong learning to be a key to professional success. The most significant key to being a successful professional in this current digital transformation environment is lifelong learning. Lifelong learning can be accomplished by what you are doing now by going to school, but I hate to tell you, that is not going to be enough. You need to take advantage of every company-offered education program, challenge yourself to learn from others, and increase your appetite to read, because not everything is fake news. Lifelong learning makes you valuable to your current employer and any prospective employer. The key to all this is to employ what you learn. Share what you learn for your personal growth and the growth of your organization. I hope you find as much personal and professional enjoyment out of lifelong learning as I have for all these years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Berkeley College for their partnership, and especially Michael Lincoln for his vision and leadership. Michael approached our organization about a potential partnership for an MBA program, and we were impressed with the college's credentials and caliber of their professors and staff. When we recognized that we could partner with Berkeley on a bachelor's program as well, Michael went out of his way to ensure that the multiple needs of our employees have been met. Michael, Lincoln, the professors, and everyone at Berkeley have helped us tremendously with our digital transformation and cultural journey. Let me wish all of you a very happy and safe holiday season, and I would be happy to entertain any questions that anyone has at this point.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Very inspirational, very informative. I'd like to remind the audience to please post any questions that you may have in the Q&A box. About your focus on servant leadership as being critical to a digital transformation at Affinity. How do you manage a humanistic approach in such a technologically driven environment?
You know, that's a great question, Dr. Scarelli. I mean, I think that there's two levels we have to talk about here on being a humanistic approach and keeping a human touch. At the member or the consumer level, technology cannot, in our model, be a sole replacement for meeting the human requirements of the relationship with the member. Obviously, we've had to, as have other financial services providers that have gone 100% digital, we have to interject that human aspect. So the hybrid digital business model is how we're addressing that and utilizing a complete 360-degree view of the consumer allows us to have both a technological as well as a human interaction with personal solutions that meet the consumer's individual needs. And most importantly, timing those solutions at the time that the member is going to need those. So we've added many more delivery channels during this time, and we'll be adding more in the future to bring our organization and team members to the consumer, even if it doesn't mean in person. Internally, for our team members who are operating remotely, we've also had to provide that humanistic or human touch to our team. We are obviously heavily dependent on video conferencing to meet with the work teams and individually. But we've asked our leaders to meet more often for check-ins to replace the drop-in visits that you can have when you're in the office. We're utilizing more organizational surveys of the team members to gauge their needs and wants from the organization. We're creating clubs and groups for non-work gatherings. You know, we as I mentioned, we've created the virtual learning portal. And by individual initiative, team members have had happy hours and other celebrations by video conference. So I think as this technology and in this world further adopts, you're going to see other ways to get that human touch and the humanistic point of view out there, serving not only our individual team members, but also the consumers at large.
Well, thank you very much for that, Kevin. And as part of my, inquisitive nature, I just want to ask another question. At Affinity, how do you create opportunities to maintain the human touch, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think the human touch, we've got to be relying on our team members to provide us the input on that. It is a collaborative environment, and we're constantly going out through surveys and other means to find out what more they need, not only to be successful in serving the members, but also in what they need to be successful personally and professionally. In this day and age, it's going to take some trial and error, and I think we're in that process now. I can't point to one single thing that's going to make or break the human touch, but you can trust that not only Affinity but every organization is going to work very hard at replicating that human touch for their team and for their consumers that they serve.
Okay, great. So, you'll forgive me for just a few more. Anyway, what are the, I don't often get the opportunity to interact with someone with your vast background, and I appreciate the opportunity. But what are the new norms of corporate culture as a result of the digital transformation? How is that affecting it?
I think Yeah, I think there's a few things that we need to point to that make organizations successful with a digital transformation. I think one thing is you've got to have a real vision, or that what they call North Star, which everyone in the organization is going to work towards. It's that goal that the organization's working to reach. That's got to be really clear and very understood by the organization. There's got to be a high emphasis on the usage of small empowered teams. The agile nature of digital transformation requires you to move fast, and that empowerment in the small teams allows that to occur. I think the rapid decision making, and breaking things down into short bursts of deliverables allows you to keep moving forward and keeps that energy in the organization driving forward to be successful. And I think you've got to also take a look and have a constant review of your goals and metrics, learning from where you've been successful, but also understanding that failing isn't necessarily bad. It's a learning opportunity. And so you've got to learn to fail fast. And that's something that we as an executive team recognize that we've got to get better at. You've got to accept that constant failure rate because you're learning from it and you're making adjustments on the fly. Those are the keys that I see make it the new norms as we move forward under digital transformation.
Yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out about failure, because so many people don't understand, especially those that are getting into business, that you are going to go through different phases in your business. You're going to fail at certain things, and you learn a lot from them, and you move ahead, and that's really a key. Looking at the financial services industry in the future, and let's hope it's the near future that we're in post-pandemic. What do you think the industry is going to look like post-pandemic?
Well, I have to say that I think financial services in of itself is, like many businesses, are going to be forever impacted by the pandemic, and I don't think that has to be a bad thing. I think we can say that we can find the positives out of a bad situation, because I think it has shown that consumers that can react and utilize the digital solutions for the most basic transactions, which they previously had to leave the confines of their home as they visited a branch location. It's going to change our conversations in financial services to be more consultative in the future, where these consultations will end up being about financial well-being, which will surround funding big ticket purchases, financial planning, and financial education. So by the institution kind of shifting the self-serve aspect to technology, it's actually going to provide us more time and energy to be able to meet the ongoing needs of the consumers, which are continuing to elevate, and certainly will continue to elevate as long as this pandemic's in place.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, because there is a lot of uncertainty out there, and your remarks and your insight are very helpful. We're very fortunate this evening to have the Berkeley College graduate faculty with us, and I'd like to ask them to please turn on their videos and be ready for a little interaction with you, Kevin.
As long as it's not a final exam, Dr. Scarelli, I'm all in. Okay.
Well, you know what? We've disallowed those in the graduate school, so you don't have to worry tonight. Anyway, tonight we have Dr. Vinita Itup, Dr. David Glazer. We have Dr. Michael McAteer and Dr. Maya Reddy with us this evening. And I think we'll start off with Dr. Itup.
Okay.
And, with her,
How are you, Mr. Brauer?
Very good.
Yes, it's really wonderful to have you speak with us. There's so much I am learning from your words and your experiences. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I know that Affinity Federal, like all other financial institutions, um, is continuing to experience an unprecedented level of disruption, impacting the way you conduct your business, the way your employees work together, and the way you help your members manage their finances. When all's said and done, I look for the silver lining in here, right? And one of that is perhaps this is also a period of great discovery. You know, it's a process where you are currently experiencing your current digital infrastructures and the resources, how well they're performing together, and where you need to be, where the gaps are. Could you share with us what are the key lessons you learned during this very difficult time? And do you think the new normal is going to be an extrapolation of what we are experiencing now with the digital technology being at the forefront of the new normal? Or is there something else out there that the way you think would be appropriate, to?
Yeah, I think business in and of itself, and it doesn't just have to be financial services, but I look back over my 40 years in business, and you take a look at, and you think you've seen it all, correct? I mean,
Right.
After a while, you feel like, okay, there really aren't too many surprises. I think this one caught a lot of people off guard. I mean, I don't think anybody, none of us were around for the Spanish flu, so we weren't exactly expecting this to occur. So I think what it brought to the forefront are things that have always been part of the business model, but things like business continuity planning. It increased the faith in your team, right? To be able to adjust on the fly, to be able to pick up and move and be able to serve members from home in overnight with basically no notice. And it also, for me, it showed how important it was to have an expandable technology platform that was able to be expanded as we needed it to be able to handle the unexpected events that this brought about. That's just a few items. I mean, there's so many things that when we stop and we get past this crisis, and in all honesty, for us, the crisis hasn't stopped because we're still serving members that are being severely impacted by this pandemic. So, we're continuing to look for creative ways to help them make it through this very draconian hit that both the individual consumers and the businesses are feeling. So it's those kinds of things that I think when we finally get to the point where we can take a step back, it would be very important, whether it's Affinity or it's any other business, to kind of memorialize what you did learn. So I think that would be another learning for me, is to say, look, I need to crystallize this for somebody in the future, because the learning from this is endless, in my opinion.
Right. Thank you very much. Perhaps Michael, you want to take it away?
Me?
Yes, Michael.
I just had interesting things. As Dr. Scarali mentioned, we don't have final exams, Kevin, but there is a paper due on Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Okay, 5,000 words, double spaced. Just so we could.
It's what is that, on Sunday or Saturday?
Saturday evening. You're
so I guess I have until Saturday night at 11:30 to start. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I was just interesting. In the news today, it's all about the vaccine. It's been used in the UK, and hopefully it'll be in the US within a week. So there's like a light at the end of this COVID tunnel that we're in. So it's kind of curious what aspects of corporate culture or will corporate culture return to the previous state, its previous standards of operating, or those new norms you talked about, okay, with the digital workplace, are they here to stay? is this a, was it Buzz Lightyear says, on to infinity, or is this 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of things that the existing operating environment will continue. I think that I think there's some real positives to some of the things I said. I mean, for us to move to an agile culture, that was in the works to begin with, but there's so much we need to continue along that line. So we're going to memorialize a lot of that. I think the culture of getting back to an in-person environment is going to be helpful at times. I mean, I think, it's one thing for all of us to meet like this, but I think even you can understand, when you're up in front of a class or you're presenting to a group, it's so much easier to read if there's acceptance when somebody's right in front of you. So I do see some real advantages for us to go back to educating and bringing people along and brainstorming in those kinds of environments. So I think that collaboration is enhanced greatly by being able to be back in person. And so there will be pieces of the existing culture that were there pre-pandemic that will come back. But I still believe that a good number of the competencies that I mentioned this evening will be the cornerstone of many organizations as we move forward. Oh,
great. But while I have you here, I always like to try to get some free advice, why not while you're here. As a faculty member of the MBA program, what do you think we should know about how to best prepare students for the MBA, particularly with regard to the digital needs of organizations like Affinity or the general population, manufacturing firm? And this applies across the board as far as I'm concerned. I think there's 3 things that I will say to you that are very important: data, data, and data. Everything right now is around data, and how we decide what data is needed, what makes good data, and how to make efficient and effective decisions off the data. Those that excel with the use of data and everything around it are going to do very well as we move forward. So to me, the thought process, expanding the thinking to the enterprise level around the use of data is of critical importance to most organizations moving forward. It's going to be the real driver of marketing and decision making as we move forward. Okay. Dr. Glazer, you have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Kevin, as a fellow a former member of the financial services industry, it's really great to be able to network with someone who comes from that same industry. I spent 30 years in that industry, but not in the banking side, more in the insurance and mutual fund side, but still a lot in common we have. And I took a quick peek at the chat box before we started taking questions. Someone asked, is Berkeley going to develop a course on Affinity? And they're so impressed by what you had to say. And I'd say, I don't know if it's going to be a course, but I'm certainly going to challenge our faculty to consider the possibility of building a case study around Affinity. That might make a lot of sense, but very informative tonight. Kevin, you mentioned lifelong learning as an integral part of your leadership philosophy. I'm curious as to what the factors were that led Affinity to enter into a corporate learning partnership with Berkeley College.
Well, I talked about it in my prepared remarks to a certain extent. And that is that we knew that we needed to continue to scale up our employee base. We wanted to give our employee base an opportunity to continue to grow with the organization as we saw things moving. And as Michael came and talked to us, Michael Lincoln, we recognize the flexibility of your program, and obviously the high level of the professors that have been drilling me already with questions. It was that kind of thing that we knew that we could build a relationship and a partnership with to help our organization grow, and kind of lean on Berkeley to help us achieve the strategic direction that we wanted to go. So that's kind of where we came down on our partnership with Berkeley, and it's been proven out. It truly has been proven out, and our employees are just rave about the opportunity and rave about what they're learning. So it's been a mutual benefit on both sides.
Well, we have some 30 Affinity employees currently enrolled in the MBA program. And one of the goals of Berkeley College's MBA program is to equip students with knowledge to guide effective action. How has the MBA program at Berkeley guided effective action at Affinity?
I touched on one earlier, and that is, we're always trying to get our employees to think broader and bigger. And through the program, they've been able to do just that. They took a look at the small piece of a problem, but then they're able to expand out and think bigger. What's the overall impact, not only to themselves in a solution set, but also what's the impact to the organization, and then onto the ultimate consumer. So that's one aspect. We also found that they are working across internal teams better, and ignoring the hierarchy that sometimes gets in the way. You find these teams, we have management people as well as what we would consider staff level positions, working together on the projects and papers that are being asked to be put together. So that's a real look at real problems and real companies are experienced. So the research and how to research, all of those things add into a benefit for us, because not every problem you can turn around and go to the bookcase and pull out a book and, hey, there's the solution. It just doesn't work that way. That's not the real world. You got to hunt and peck, and well, this may work, that may work, that might not work. So you got to do those research and look at those types of opportunities. And the ability to think critically has increased. It's led to the better problem resolution and increased ideas on how to better serve the member. So that's just a few. I mean, it'll be interesting to see as they go through the program further, what additions they would feel the participants in the program itself, and I'm sure that'll allow both of us a great deal of insight as to the benefits of the program.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that feedback. Well, I don't want to leave Maya out. Maya, do you want to add a question or comment for Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Glazer. Mr. Bauer, that was absolutely, as we say in customer service, delightful to hear your words of wisdom coming from such an experienced person such as yourself. And I just wanted to ask you that, given the circumstances and our environment that has changed so much in terms of the challenges that we're all facing, and your corporate world has gone through significant changes, positive as well as negative. When you look at new employees or even current employees, is there a expectation of some different kinds of competencies or capabilities that you're looking for? Example, technological, maybe, or anything else, or even the emotional, because as we say, EQ.
Yeah, there are, and we have a whole series of competencies, but let me just highlight a few that we have about 10 that we utilize, and I can give you about 5 off the top of my head. Change management, that's another big core competency that we're going to be looking for. I referred to it earlier, the comfort with ambiguity. We're in that environment where there's no set answers and the problems are just going to keep flying at you. You've got to be creative in your solutioning. We also need that entrepreneurial mindset, that self-starter, that person that wants to get in there and take hold and drive solutions. It's extremely important. I alluded to it earlier in data, comfort with data and using data in decision making. It's going to be a critical element as we gather more and more data. As a financial institution, I think you can all understand the amount of data we gather through payments and in other consumer behaviors that we can use, not in a malicious way, but more in a helpful way, pointing out opportunities to help a consumer budget and so forth. So all of this data needs to be used in the appropriate way. And the last one I'll give you is probably something that in financial services for sure, but I say every business, integrity. Integrity, as an organization that people are trusting with their money and with their transactions, integrity has to be high. And I've worked in other organizations, and integrity is always important. And that's why I'm not leaving it off the list. I'm not going to give you a unique one, but I can't tell you how important that is, especially in financial services.
Thank you. I think one of the reasons I asked for this particular response and your ideas on this is because we as faculty would like to go back and kind of incorporate some of these in our day-to-day lessons that we kind of share with our students, because I think it's very important hearing it from someone like yourself and trying to see if we could pull that into any of our discussions, especially the last one you mentioned. We all think that's very, very critical as a core value for your organization, as well as a core competence, both ways, at an organizational as well as a personal level. And I think that's very critical. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to share all 10 with you at some point. So no worries.
Dr. Glaser, back to you.
Well, actually, I'm gonna kick it over to our moderator, Dean Joe Scarali. Joe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Glaser. Kevin, thank you so much for your input. If you notice, Kevin, once the faculty starts talking, I like to get out of the way because I don't want to get run over with all of those ideas that are coming out, right? So, and we appreciate.
I do the same thing here, so I fully understand.
We appreciate certainly your insights, your knowledge on everything. We do have a couple. I know that we're coming down on the clock here, but we do have a couple of questions from the audience that I'd like to pose to you. One has to do with of course, with the pandemic, but in terms of recruitment, since so much of Affinity, so much of your employee base is working at home remotely, how does that affect recruitment opportunities for people perhaps to join the organization? What is your view on the pandemic in terms of the recruitment situation?
Yeah, great question. And in all honesty, we had to very quickly pivot on that, right? I mean, everybody's used to interviewing in person and seeing the kicking the tires per se, but we've had to change that. And out of protection for the candidate and for our internal people, we do everything virtually. We have created videos of the headquarters and showing the organization virtually. We interview virtually, so it's all changed. But we're still hiring and continue to hire, and will be hiring. So it is a change, but it's been very successful.
All right, great, and that's good news. It's good news to hear that you're still actively, recruiting, and it's good for people to hear that, that life is going on, and there is still opportunities, and we all have to pose ourselves for success for when the pandemic certainly is over as well. And here's something that is sort of a change of topic, pretty much. we hear so much about, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and everything else. How have cryptocurrencies, affected Affinity? Do you see any issues with them, opportunities, threats for the markets? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, cryptocurrency is one of those things that, when you're doing strategic plans, you have a set of plans that you're active on, and then you have a set of plans that you're keeping an eye on, right? I mean, you kind of create these two lists. Well, cryptocurrency is on the list that we're keeping an eye on. And right now, it hasn't really impacted our business, but we do see and recognize that as the Federal Reserve system and other institutions get involved in it, we will probably have to play in that space. And so that's to come at this point. But yes, it certainly is out there, and we're keeping a very close eye on it. And as things begin to shift, we will have to entertain that form of currency as well.
All right, so I appreciate that. We are coming up near 7, but I think we have time for one more with us. We have a few minutes. What advice can you share with business leaders trying to sustain their enterprises during these times?
Yeah, I mean, I often say that I'm so pleased that as I said earlier, we're impacted by it, but I know that there's a lot of businesses that are impacted dramatically. And I think one of the things that we always recommend is they need to figure out what their cash flow is, to monitor that cash flow situation, and they need to work with their financial institutions sooner rather than later. Don't wait till the last minute. If you feel that when your projections are going to get tight, work with the institution at that point. It's much easier for the institution to make those changes. We're in constant conversation with our business members every day, and looking and being creative on how we can structure liquidity for them to keep their doors open as they make this transition, as we wait for a vaccine, so that they can make it through this period of time. I think the other thing is, and you need to reach out to the Small Business Administration, this SBA, to determine what their options are. And a lot of financial institutions like Affinity have access to the SBA, and we can line that up for businesses as well. So that's the problem. I think the cash flow is the piece that you really have to be aware of as we move forward.
All right, great, Kevin. Thank you so much for that really great information and advice to business owners and business operators, because at this time they certainly need it. We are coming near the close, and I just wanted to say that I took the dean of the business school job back in June. And I have to tell you that when I first went to go talk to our graduate faculty, all I kept hearing about was Affinity, Affinity, Affinity. And I said, what is all of this discussion about Affinity? I heard about how great the students were. I mean, I want to congratulate you on your fantastic employees and your organization. And I was very, very excited to hear that you were coming tonight, and that I would have an opportunity to moderate this. And I really have to tell you, it was very informative. I'm very excited to hopefully meet your employees soon as students. And I want to thank you very much on behalf of Berkeley College and everyone on the great presentation you gave us and for all the knowledge you shared. Thank you so much. We are so grateful to our guest of honor, Kevin Brauer, for such an inspiring and rich dialogue. Thank you to our audience at home. So before you go, there is a survey we would like you to respond to about this evening's event. Your feedback is important to informing future events. We look forward to hearing your feedback and to having you participate in future events at Berkeley College. Thank you again, and have a great evening.